Welcome to this ORCID training video on inter-entity trade. My name is Natalie, and today the focus will be on using audit logs and periodic processing in inter-entity trade. This training video coincides with new features in the latest inter-entity product update, where the date created and the date amended are now included in the trade logs and can be used to filter. Why use the inter-entity trade audit logs? And that refers to both APAR and OENPO. Firstly, you want to confirm that the transactions have been created as expected. You can find the target transaction number and or the batch and entry number. If there has been an error, the audit log will help you identify the error and the reason for the error. So you should always look at the log when there is an error so that you get a chance to correct the error before anyone finds a missing transaction and creates this transaction manually, which may break the chain of the transactions that you have set up. The process is the same for both APAR and OEPO. You first review the audit log, fix the error, and then use the periodic processing to reprocess the error transactions. This then uses the existing audit log entries to reprocess the transactions. And as a result, we do not recommend that you clear the log entries because the audit log is used for the ongoing processing and chaining of the transactions. You have the ability to use some screen filters. Use Ctrl F to filter on any column that is displayed on the screen and set up the manual filter and clear the filters. Most recently, we've added the date created and the date amended filters, which should make identifying the transactions much easier. And there are also some inter-entity trade reports that you can run. The most common errors in trade AP and AR relate to XAPI errors, not being able to connect to the target database, GL accounts or distribution set not being configured, the vendor or the customer being inactive, fiscal period being closed, document numbers being invalid, and optional fields not being set up. So we're now going to look at a few examples of these. The first example we're going to look at is focusing on XAPI errors to connect to the database. This applies to both APAR trade and OENPO trade. We'll look at an example with AP and AR. In this example, I have just posted an AR invoice in ORC Ltd that should create an AP invoice in ORC IN2, and I'm getting this message by user ID. So I know that the transaction hasn't been created in the target database. So what I need to do is go to IET Inquiries and use APAR Trade Audit Inquiry. On this log, I can filter through the top of the screen by status, or I can filter by date. So I'm just going to look at all transactions created today, and I can see my errors enabled to open a connection to the database. To fix the XAPI errors, there are two main things to look at. In IET Setup, Trade Organization Setup. This is where we configure the user and password for each company. So come in here and check maybe my user has changed or my password has changed. So re-enter it and save. The next thing I need to do is make sure that I untick this workstation uses Integration Access Pack on the IAP tab. Now that I've corrected that, go to IET Periodic Processing, APAR Periodic Processing, and reprocess the transactions that are in error or pending. And I can select all or just AR to AP. When this process is completed, I can go back to IET Inquiries, APAR Trade Audit Inquiries, refresh, and I can see that now I've got a target document number in IN2, so batch number 33 and document entry number 1 and document entry number 2. So I can filter by any column on this. So I can go Control F and filter by posting sequence, equals or greater than or not equal to. One that's particularly useful, the status. So I can Control F and find all the transactions that have been exported, or all the transactions that are in error and therefore haven't been exported yet. If you have XAPI database connection issues in OEPO Trade, it's exactly the same process. You would go to OEPO Trade Audit Inquiry and OEPO Trade Periodic Processing once you have updated your trade organization setup. And you can see that in the visual process flow. The other part of inter-entity trade is OEPO. We've looked at the different types of errors we can find in the audit log in AP and AR. Some of them are common to OE and PO, and that's, for example, the XAPI errors or the customer or the vendor that don't exist. But we get other types of errors that are specific to OE and PO trade, and we're going to look at some of the most common ones just now. So, for example, if the linked documents have already been processed, typically because somebody found a missing transaction and created it manually in the target database rather than reprocessing through OEPO periodic processing. We can find that sometimes the document is not found or that the order is on hold. We're trying to process the shipment. That doesn't work. We have the common locked fiscal year in period or customer vendor being inactive, or location and category coming from the OEPO trade partner setup. We have some less common one like errors around serial number or lots, or errors when PJC, project and job costing, contract, project or category codes are invalid. So we're now going to look at some of the most common errors in the OEPO audit log. In this first example, we're going to look at a simple scenario where an OE order in ORC Ltd creates a purchase order in ORC IN2, and we will go through a few errors relating to XAPI connections to the database, vendor being inactive, and items not being mapped. I've posted an order, and I'm getting, if I go into the trade audit inquiry and filter on that document number, order 119, I can see there is no trade document yet and it's in error because it's unable to open the XAPI session, bad user ID. So to fix this, I need to go into IET Setup, Trade Organization Setup, choose my database ID, ORC IN2, and resave the password. Then I can go to IET Periodic Processing and process documents in error. All documents that have that error, for example. When it's completed, I can go back to the trade audit log, refresh, and now I'm managed to connect to the database, but I can see that my vendor is inactive. So to fix a vendor inactive error, I need to make the vendor active in the target company, ORC IN2, and reprocess. I have used trade periodic processes to reprocess order 119, and now I have a different error on the peer order line because the item doesn't exist in ORC IN2 database. So with invalid items, there are two options depending on how trade is set up and basically depending on your business process. The example we're looking at, we're going from customer 1550 to vendor 9921, and we have set up a category override of IC. So we need to make sure that that category is active in ORC IN2. And also on the OEPO trade options, we have ticked use item mapping. That means for each trade partner setup, I need to map the items that these trade partners can trade with each other. So in this case, I need to add A1 103B And I can map it to A11030 if I want to. Or I can create A11030B in my target database and map the same items. Note that if I don't use item mapping in the trade options, I won't have an item mapping tab, and I need to make sure that all the items that I'm putting on the OE order exist in the target database. Finally, I've fixed all the errors regarding category, items, database mapping. I can use the trade periodic processing one last time, and when it's completed, go to my trade audit inquiry, refresh, and now I've got a PO number in my target database and the status has been changed to exported. So we've seen how in OE PO trade we can have XAPI errors and we can have inactive customers and vendors and locked fiscal period like in AP and AR. What we're going to look at now is some trade setup scenarios from our ORCID sample data, where your order creates a purchase order in ORC Ltd, which then creates a sales order in ORC IN2. And we will look at various error scenario and how to fix them. So in this example, I have posted an OE order which has created a PO in ORC Ltd, and that PO has created an order in ORC IN2. So my chaining has worked. So now I come to ORC IN2, try and ship my order, create a PO receipt in ORC Ltd, and it should also create an OE shipment for that order we originally created, and it was unable to. So to investigate that, we need to go into ORC Ltd and go into IET OE Trade Inquiry. Filter on transactions that are not exported. So I'm going to add a filter PO receipt. So now I'm looking at PO receipt to OE shipment in error. And it's telling me it can't create the shipment because order 114 is on hold. So I have two solutions to fix this. One is obviously to take order 114 off hold and reprocess with periodic processing. However, I'd like to take this opportunity to show you that you can, depending on your business process, actually map the on-hold flag between OE and PO. And to do this, we go to Trade Options, OE PO Integration, and we choose OE to PO and PO document on hold. We can choose what we're passing to that field, and the options are the OE order document on hold. Save this, and then make sure that PO to OE, choose the OE document on hold. That one is already mapped. So when I put a PO on hold, the linked OE will be put on hold as well. Save this. So in future, when I put an order on hold, the chain of transactions linked to that original sales order will also be put on hold. So that's an option depending on your business process. In our example, we now need to take this order off hold, and we can come back here to OEPO periodic processing, and we're doing PO receipt to OE shipments. See, there's only the one in error. Refresh, check the inquiry. There are no more transactions that are not in error, so I can clear the filter and check that my PO receipt to a shipment, preferably created today, have all been successfully exported. I can see receipt 111, the one we're looking at. It's created shipment 98. In our example, where an OE order creates a PO in the same company, which then creates an OE order in ORC IN2, when I come to invoicing that order in ORC IN2, I'm expecting a PO invoice which was created successfully in ORC Ltd, and I'm also expecting an OE invoice to match that PO in ORC Ltd, and I'm getting a message that I'm unable to create this. So if I now go to OE PO Trade Audit Inquiry in ORC Ltd and filter on error transactions in PO invoice to invoice document type, I can see the error message being that we cannot create the OE invoice for the OE shipment because the shipment has already been completed and invoiced. This is not because transactions has been manually invoiced. This is because in OE options of my company, default create invoice option has been set to yes. Therefore, when I shipped my order, which created the PO receipt, which created the shipment for my original sales order, that shipment then created the invoice. So if you want inter-entity trade to create the invoice, you need to make sure that default create invoice option is set to no. Now I'm going to ship this order. I can see that IET could not create a PO receipt in org IN2. So from that error message, I will then go into the audit inquiry, filter on today's date, and see that this error, the PO has already been completed. So if I go in my target database, find that PO, I can see that it's got a receipt number. It's already been receipted. So it's been receipted, it's been completed, and there are no entries for that receipt in the trade audit log. So as far as IET is concerned, this transaction is complete, this PO is complete, so we cannot process any transaction. It means that this error will remain in the audit log forever. In this example, we've created an AE order with a quantity of 2 of an item that has serial numbers. It's created my order in org IN2, the manufacturing company, appear in org Ltd. So all good so far. So now I'm coming to org IN2 to ship this order, and I'm getting an error saying unable to create PO receipt for shipment 73. So I need to go into inter-entity inquiries, OEPO trade audit inquiry, to find out my error transactions. Easiest is to say everything that's not exported. And I can see I've got one error here saying the serial number does not match the transaction quantity. So we're actually trying to create a PO receipt in org Ltd without passing the serial number. The serial numbers were added to the shipment, so if I want to pass them to the PO receipt when it's created in org Ltd, I need to tick this box, include serial lots in my PO trade setup for this customer vendor partnership. So I can save this, reprocess in periodic processing. When my periodic processing is completed, come back to my OEPO trade inquiry, refresh, and I can see that this shipment has now created a PO receipt status exported. Just a note that once the serial number chaining has started, so we have shipped, we've created a receipt, we've shipped the original sales order. When you come to doing the invoicing, you cannot change the serial number because it would create an invalid status in the serial number. So in summary, in addition to the XAPI errors and to the errors around fiscal period, fiscal year, or customer or vendor being inactive, we have looked at errors around an invalid item, which can come from item mapping on the trade partner relationship. Or if we don't use item mapping, we need to make sure that the item exists and is active in the target database. If we have created a manual transaction in transaction that is part of a chain and one of the document, for example, the PO is marked as complete, then inter-entity trade cannot create the transaction. Similarly, we may have an issue finding the originated PO document. For example, if we try to create a matched credit note in order entry, but the matched invoice did not create a PO in the target. When we create the PO return, we cannot match it to a PO invoice because it doesn't exist. The standards say 300 validations around orders on hold take place. So if you have an order that is on hold, the shipment will not work. So you can either take the order off hold and reprocess through OEPO periodic processing, and depending on your business process, for ongoing transactions, you may want to map the on-hold flag between OE and PO. If the shipment has already been invoiced, because auto invoice is selected in OE options, then again you cannot recreate that transaction through IE Trade, so the error will remain in the log. We suggest that you then untick the auto invoice options in order entry, or you never create invoices through inter-entity trade. When you have errors around the serial number, the first thing to check is that use serial is ticked on the OEPO trade partnership, and a reminder that you can't change the serial numbers when created an invoice. And if you have errors around vendor, customer, etc. being inactive, then you should check your OEPO trade partner setup and make the customer, vendor, category and location active, and then reprocess through periodic processing. For more information on inter-entity trade, you can go to our website and look at the inter-entity trade product page, where you will find the various training videos. Thank you for watching.